Hey, if you're pregnant over 40, I have just the community for you. It's a private community away from Facebook where women just like you come together to meet and support one another during pregnancy. To sign up for the waitlist, go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist and be the first to know when the membership is open. I can't wait to see you inside. Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. I am your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to episode 29. If you're looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, you've come to the right place. Today on the show, we have Mary from Fort Worth, Texas, who is a homeschool mom of 7. In this episode, Mary tells us how she made these last pregnancies her best. She also tells a story how baby kicks were the first sign of pregnancy for her. She didn't find out she was pregnant with her last pregnancy until 22 weeks. And Mary also thought she was going through menopause. I am so excited to meet Mary for brunch next week. I've scheduled another brunch for you if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. It's going to be April 22nd at 11 a.m. So please email me or DM me on Instagram for details. My email is jamie@over40fabulousandpregnant.com. I'd love to have you join us. I want to shout out to TTC Rainbow Baby _40. She just found out she was pregnant. Congratulations. And I just had my 42nd birthday last week. It was such a great day, and I can't wait to be pregnant at 42. It's going to happen. And a quick update on me. We purchased our donor eggs, and she had a great retrieval. She retrieved 20 eggs. She's 26, so I guess those are the expected numbers when you're in your 20s. She is a carrier for a disease that my husband hasn't been tested for, so he's being tested for it, and I was clear, do not ship the eggs until he's cleared that he isn't a carrier. Because if he is, we have a second and third donor egg option. I had a great conversation with a fertility coach the other day, and it really shook me, actually. I want to do more exploring to make sure my womb is going to be an amazing place for our embryo. I don't want to waste any embryos or time with doing any transfers if something is wrong. I've had 2 miscarriages, and I just want to do more investigating. We can assume it could be my eggs because the IVF egg retrieval didn't go well, but I would rather spend some extra money doing some investigating than wasting eggs and all of that money. So I'm really excited. Things are moving along. Enough about me. And with that, let's get into Mary's pregnancy stories at 40 and 44. Mary, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And you were pregnant at 40 and 44.
Yes, I've had my last 2 babies in my 40s.
And before we get into your stories, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Mary Smiley. I've been married to my husband for 16 years. We have 7 children, ages 14 down to 9 months, and I homeschool here in Fort Worth.
You're 45, so you're almost a year postpartum with your last one.
Yes, she's 9 months old.
And let's start off with your story at 40. Bring us back to how you found out you were pregnant at 40.
At 40, it was pretty typical. I was having regular cycles. I missed one. I took a pregnancy test and found that I was pregnant. And the pregnancy was very routine. I didn't feel any different than the only difference was in my 30s, my first 4 pregnancies, I was really unhealthy. I just ate whatever I wanted to, was on a high lot of sugar and carbs. And so the difference being that in my last 3 pregnancies, I was a lot healthier. So I think that made the pregnancy easier in that sense. I didn't have all the aches and pains, and I stayed active. And so the pregnancy was really routine up until the last trimester.
Was this planned, or were you trying?
And no, we had experienced a miscarriage with our first baby, a surprise with a very quick surprise with our second baby. And at that point, we had decided to neither try nor prevent at any more times. We were just going to leave it up to the Lord because it was just exhausting trying to figure this all out ourselves. And we had come to the end of all that. And so we then had 4 babies, and then had a miscarriage, and then had a few-year break, and then were surprised with a 5th baby, and then another break, and that's when I wanted one more, but I still wasn't willing to try for one. Still, with 2 miscarriages, I really didn't. I hesitated to want to try because I didn't want to face that disappointment again. So if it happened, it would be great, and if it didn't, I would be at peace. And we did get pregnant again with our 6th baby, and took the pregnancy test when I missed the period, and it was positive, and pregnant again, and very thankful. So fast forward to a very uneventful pregnancy. Just first trimester, threw up a lot. Second trimester, felt great. Third trimester, I started having a lot of contractions, and they were just a lot of contractions. So the doctor was watching me carefully because he was sure I was going to go into labor very soon. But because I was having so many contractions, when it finally came time to deliver, I was not willing to go to the hospital because I thought these are just like the other contractions. They're going to peter out and I'll be fine. So one morning I woke up at 5 a.m. with pretty strong contractions. My husband woke up and he thought that you really need to go to the hospital. And I said, no, I don't think so. He's like, I'm taking you regardless. So we get to the hospital. My in-laws come to watch the other kids and the baby. And I go to the hospital, and by the time we got there, I didn't want to get out of the car because the contractions stopped. And my worst nightmare has been going into the hospital and finding out I'm not in labor and being sent home. So I called my sister. I said, this is what's happened here. I'm at the hospital. She's like, well, walk around the parking garage. If you walk around, maybe the contractions will start again. Or if they stop, you can just go home. So we get out of the car and I start walking, and I realized I had to use the restroom. So I go into the hospital, and my plan is to say I have to use the restroom. Instead, it came out, I think I'm in labor. And I did not mean to say that. I'm taken back to triage, and the nurse came in and she checked me, and she said, just a second. She called another nurse back in, and she checked me. She's like, are you feeling what I'm feeling? And I'm in the dark at this point. And she's like, sweetheart, you are 10 centimeters dilated, and we can feel the baby's head. I said, what? Because I'm not even having contractions anymore. And suddenly, they're now panicking. And I said, by the way, at my last doctor's appointment, the baby was sideways. So they bring in an ultrasound machine, and sure enough, she's still sideways. And so now they won't let me go to the bathroom because they're afraid of a prolapsed cord if I push and the baby starts to be, I go into labor. So all these people are still in the room deciding what to do. My OB was not on call that weekend. It was a different doctor. And I'm so thankful because she said, you've had all vaginal births, and I'm not going to let you have a C-section today. And she took me into the operating room. They prepped me for surgery in case it was an emergency C-section. And first she used her hands to try to turn the baby. And then she used a tongue depressor, pushing it in. Now, thankfully, I had the epidural already because I didn't want one since I wasn't in any pain, but they advised this because of possible C-section, I needed to have one. And my husband said I should because he had to turn away. It looked so painful the way she was pressing that depressor into my belly. And she successfully turned her, put something connected to her head and out of me like a string to keep her in place from turning again. And I moved back to labor and delivery. She warned me that I would go backwards, and I did. I went back to 6 centimeters from 10 and had to go through labor for those 10 again. But then she was born perfectly. I have a history with all my babies of having too much amniotic fluid. And so she's not the first baby they've had to kind of wrangle to keep in position, because most babies, they say, have a pool, mine have an ocean, so they can float around and they don't stay engaged very easily.
Interesting.
And so that was the dramatic arrival of our sixth baby at 40.
And how was your recovery?
It was painful only because of the turning. After the delivery and the epidural were off, I just felt like I had been, run over. And my husband wasn't surprised. He said, as the amount of manipulation it took to turn that baby, I'm not surprised you're so sore.
Yeah.
So that definitely was the sorest recovery I've ever experienced, just because of her turning, not really because of the birth.
And how do you choose to feed your babies?
I breastfeed all of them. And so breastfeeding my milk came in as usual within 3 or 4 days. She breastfed very well. She was a good sleeper. And yeah, she's 4 now.
Wow.
About to turn 5 in a couple months. So yeah, and so we were content after she was born. We had 6 wonderful children. And then shortly after she was born, well, probably close to a year after she was born, my cycle returned, but it didn't become regular as it had been before she was born. It was 30 days, then it was 40 days, then it was 60, then it was 20. It was all over the board. So I thought, well, maybe I'm premenopausal, and so maybe it's going to stop soon. And I'm fine with that. We have 6 children. I don't need any more. We're okay with that. So I just went on my way.
You're 44.
Yes.
And your periods are irregular. Then what?
Then August 28th, I had a period, and like I would randomly, and then wouldn't randomly. So when I didn't have one for quite a few months, I really didn't think anything of it. That was in August. September of 2021, I had COVID and got very sick, and I was sick for about 2 months. So I think that also disguised the fact that I was pregnant, because I was so sick, and any pregnancy symptoms would have been masked by the COVID, thinking it was just part of being sick. So when I was better, by the end of October, we were planning our annual beach trip, and we had moved it from September to November. We went on our beach trip. I didn't feel well the entire beach trip, but not horrible, just a little bit unwell, but I didn't, again, attribute it to pregnancy. With my irregular cycles, I'd given up on that thought. I just thought it was the water or something that I wasn't feeling well. We were at home. I felt better. We celebrated Thanksgiving. We celebrated Christmas. Again, I haven't gained any weight. I'm feeling my normal self. And after Christmas, I gained 2 pounds. And I attribute it to all the rich foods I'd eaten over the holidays. But nothing I did to normally lose the 2 pounds worked. I started to look like I'd had a big meal, like a bloat after a meal, but nothing else. And again, I'm not attributing it to pregnancy. I'm just attributing it to perimenopausal bloat. So then comes January and February. February 1st, the last day of January 31st, I was doing some housework and I felt a baby kick. And I thought maybe it was one of those imaginary kicks moms say to feel, just reminiscent of pregnancy. So I just ignored it. The next day, I felt more kicks the next morning. And so I texted my husband at work. He was coming home for lunch, and I asked him to bring a pregnancy test home because I thought I was losing my mind, and I wanted to confirm it was not a baby and that I really was just crazy. And so he came home for lunch. I took the pregnancy test, and it came back positive, and I was shocked. So now I'm counting back to my last period in August and realizing it's been 22 weeks. And now I'm freaking out because what kind of medicine did I take when I had COVID? I wasn't making sure it was pregnancy safe. I have not been eating enough. I've been trying to diet to lose these 2 pounds. Oh no, is this baby going to be okay? Well, I called my doctor and she said, well, I can't get you into next week because we have an ice storm coming. And it was the snow and ice we got in February of 2021. So I guess it was 22 at this point, 2022. Not the big one in 21, the little one in 2022. So we had to wait for the weekend for the ice to melt, and I was a basket case. So we went in for the ultrasound to confirm pregnancy, and the ultrasound tech was kind of laughing because to confirm pregnancy, I obviously now have a belly because over the weekend I'd been eating because I am freaking out about starving this baby. And so I go in gaining much more than the 2 pounds, and I obviously have a belly now. And he scans me and there's this full grown baby. and it's a baby girl. You can obviously tell. I mean, she is huge. And they confirmed I was 22 weeks pregnant. And I've always known I was pregnant before I took a test. I could just feel it.
Yeah.
So it amazed me that I'd gotten so far without having any clue I was pregnant. And how would I have known if she hadn't started kicking?
Yeah.
So it was shock. It was total shock.
Yeah. So do you use the same doctor for the one at 40, the one at 45, 44?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. I like her because she's always been very hands off. She's never recommended any additional testing because of my age. She never mentions my age. I never see anything labeled advanced maternal age or anything. She just comes in, she would ask how I'm feeling, she'd measure me, she'd, do all the exam, and then I would leave. It would be nothing out of the ordinary of pregnancy at any age. And she was like that both times, and I really appreciated that.
Was there any products that you couldn't live without that you would recommend that helped you during pregnancy?
No, I don't use anything special during pregnancies. I have never needed to.
Oh, that's nice. And how do you prepare for your babies?
A lot of rest because, I never had a pregnancy class. My first baby was born at 32 weeks, and the class to prepare for birth was planned the week after she was born. Mm-hmm. So we canceled that. We had a baby instead. So I figured I learned through experience, and so didn't really need to have any kind of class after that. So not really. I think I rest as much as I can from experience, knowing that I'm going to be so tired with a baby waking up all hours of the night. So I really try to sleep. It's hard because I make too much amniotic fluid. So by the end of the pregnancy, I'm very uncomfortable.
Now, does that just cause your belly to get bigger?
Yes, I get a lot bigger. Bigger with some and not as big with others. My biggest was with my fourth. She had the most fluid. With 4 of my pregnancies, my water has broken at home because of having too much amniotic fluid. In my 40s, it was the first time, 40 and 44 were the first time my water did not break at home.
Oh.
And that was frustrating for me because I had not had history of counting contractions, timing contractions. So that's probably why I ended up at 40, not going to the hospital sooner, because I'd had a lot of false starts and didn't go to the hospital for any of those and was fine. So when it started again, I really wasn't concerned that it was the actual thing, especially since they did peter out and stop by the time we got to the hospital. So it was a shock to be 10 centimeters. And so that ended without me really having to count contractions. And then this one ended differently than all my pregnancies. At 44, all my babies were born between 36 and 38 weeks, except for my 132-week baby. So I was now 39 weeks pregnant and very uncomfortable. I'd never gone that far with so much amniotic fluid. And so my doctor suggested to be induced. And I agreed only because my labors do not go quick. My water breaks, or I go in at 10 centimeters, and my labor starts, but then it peters out. And so I've always needed Pitocin to get it to start back again. So being induced was somewhat kind of my history because I've had to use Pitocin with all my pregnancies. So I was going to schedule it this was a Thursday, and she was going to schedule it for a Saturday morning. Saturday, the 28th of May, 2022 came, and the hospital called me that morning and told me there were no beds. So they would call me if a bed became available. Well, as the morning went on, I actually started to go into labor. My contractions started coming closer and closer. I'm starting to panic because now even if I go into labor on my own, there are no beds at the hospital. So I waited. My husband suggested going grocery shopping. I said, no, I don't think I can walk around the store. I think it will put me further into labor. I'm staying home until the hospital calls. At lunchtime, the hospital called and asked if I could get there within 30 minutes. I said, yes. I get there and they get me hooked up. They check me. I'm at 3 centimeters and I'm having contractions. They said, wow, do you know you're already having labor contractions? And I said, yes, I can feel them. They started the Pitocin anyway because it was an induction, and I wasn't having anything that I couldn't handle. So I usually wait to get an epidural until I'd can't handle the contractions, and it's usually as they have to increase the Pitocin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to 6 centimeters and I asked for an epidural because now I can't do it anymore. I'm getting tired. And so the technician comes in, he gives me the epidural, the anesthesiologist gives me the epidural, and all of a sudden I'm feeling pressure between my legs, like intense pressure. And I told them the baby's coming. So they said, really? They said, do not push. So they got the doctor in there, and she's coming, and the epidural has not taken effect yet. And I'm in so much pain. I'm asking what's going on. They said, well, your pain is outracing the epidural. And so that was not fun. So now I'm pushing. The second push, the epidural kicks in, and the third push, she's almost out, and the fourth push, she's out.
Wow.
So epidural for 2 pushes.
So how long were you actually at the hospital before you gave birth?
I got there at 12:30 and she was born at 4.
Okay. Wow. That's still a 4-hour birth. That's not bad at all. Less than a 4-hour
That's
birth.
my fastest. My normal birth, I go into labor at home. My water breaks. I go into the hospital having contractions. My labor stops. I have to get Pitocin to start it, and they're usually 7 to 8 hours.
Uh-huh.
So this was fast.
Yeah.
40 and 44 were both my fastest deliveries.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to being pregnant, how could you compare your pregnancies from in your 40s than your 30s?
Well, my first baby I had when I was 31, and I was very unhealthy. But all through her pregnancy, I ate whatever I wanted to, which was a lot of carbs and sugar. For my second baby at 32, the same. My third at 34, and my fourth at 35. And with all of them, I was able to get right back into shape afterward just by walking. Didn't take a lot of work to get back to my pre-pregnancy size. But after my fourth baby, I was 38, and it wasn't happening. I wasn't losing the weight at all. It just nothing that I tried before worked. And so I came across a lifestyle change through 2 sisters who were at Trim Healthy Mama. And I read their book, and seemed easy. I knew my husband would never go on a diet. He would never eat rice cakes. He would never, eat diet food. And what I liked about this, the book the 2 sisters wrote, it was all just real food. And it was just about separating fuel. So eat fats, but no carbs. Eat carbs, no carbs, just fats. Or eat lean carbs and no fats. And eliminate sugar, all processed foods, and all refined carbs. I did that starting in 2013, and I've done that ever since. So my pregnancies at 38, 40, and 44 were completely different. I didn't have the swelling. I didn't have the aches and pains. I stayed active. I was exercising 5 to 6 days a week with all of those pregnancies, and it was night and day. I felt great all the way up until the last trimester when the baby was big enough and I was just uncomfortable.
Uh-huh. And you think it's because of your diet?
I do believe that, because even when I was not pregnant, I wasn't feeling well. I was eating way too much sugar and having sugar crashes. I never connected the joint pain I was having to the way I was eating, and I had suffered a lot of inflammation. And so once I changed the way I was eating, between babies 4 and 5, those pregnancies were night and day. They were so much easier, so much more comfortable. And I didn't gain as much weight with the last pregnancies after eating the different way.
Yeah. During birth, do you have anything that you're particular about in the birth room or how you birth? I know you have epidurals.
I just want my husband. I don't want anybody else there except the nurses, doctors, but just my husband.
Do you like your husband to do the cord cutting, or is the placenta important for you?
The placenta has not been important to me. I didn't learn how important it was until later, and by then I just didn't worry about it. He's cut all the cords. He just has it. I don't think I never thought about it. He not doing it. So he is the only way. I need him there because he's the only way I can get through contractions. He has to be holding my hand. I only let him go to the bathroom between contractions. If I'm having a contraction, I hold onto the bed. It's just not the same as holding on to his hand. In labor at 44, when the epidural wasn't keeping up with the pain, I was holding his hand, and all of a sudden I felt like I wanted to bite on a stick. It was hurting so badly. And I looked at his arm and was like, no, don't even think about it. But it looked, I'm like, it looks like a stick. This might work. I'm like, no, he'd never forgive me. But I was in so much pain, I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought, I just need to bite into something.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'd always had an epidural. I'd never felt that much pain. I'd never had a pain on an epidural before, so it wasn't pleasant.
Wow, that's incredible.
Lesson learned. Don't wait till 6 centimeters to get an epidural, just in case your pregnancy just escalates quickly between 6 and 10.
Yeah. So postpartum, how was it at 44?
I didn't feel like it was any different. I think the only difference between my first 4 pregnancies and my last 3 were that I didn't feel as bad postpartum because I hadn't gained as much weight, and the weight gain was really just all the extra amniotic fluid, and any kind of little swelling I had, and a lot of the weight gain was gone immediately once my water broke. So I go back home feeling so much better. Wow. And sleeping better. So actually, I think recovery is great compared to that last month of pregnancy.
Yeah, interesting. And breastfeeding, you breastfed this one also?
Yes. I've breastfed all 7 of my babies for at least a year, some for a year and a half. And so now I'm 9 months into breastfeeding my 7th.
Oh, that's great. And what is your schedule like for that? I'm sure they're eating solid foods-ish also.
I wish. No, she is definitely my most challenging breastfeeding baby because she doesn't like food. She eats very, very little. Lately, I've been able to give her yogurt. She'll eat oatmeal once in a blue moon. She'll go weeks without eating any solid food, refusing it altogether. She loves my milk, and that's all. She was born with a very strong startle reflex. So when lady came in to do the hearing test on her after she was born, they had to pile blankets on her to keep her from startling during the testing. And now that she's 9 months, she still startles so easily. I can only nurse her in her bedroom with it dark and the white noise on so that she doesn't see anything and she can't hear anybody in the house talk, or she is distracted and off the breast and refusing to nurse.
Wow.
So I've never had a baby so distracted as she is. She shares a room with her younger siblings, and if they cough at night, if they roll over at night, she is awake because she startles awake easily.
Wow.
So she nurses really well as long as I am in the right conditions.
That's great that your supply can keep up for a year.
Yes, I learned with my first baby that I just need to eat a lot more than I even think I need to eat. So I make sure to eat every 3 hours, whether I'm hungry or not. Because I know if I don't, I'm going to be awake at 2 a.m. starving. Yeah. And so I do that so I don't have to eat overnight. This is the frustrating part. My 6 other babies were all sleeping through the night by 3 months old. Didn't do anything special, just had a nighttime routine. Didn't use a cried out method. They just naturally started sleeping on their tummy around 3 months old and slept great through the night. This little one is 9 months old and still wakes up at least once or twice a night, sometimes 3 times. So even on the days I can get her to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, she still wakes up a couple times at night. I don't know why, but we've done everything the same with her as we've done with all the others, except that she doesn't like to sleep. She doesn't like to roll over onto her tummy during the day, and she doesn't like to sleep on her tummy. She still sleeps on her back, whereas my other tummy sleepers for months by now. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, or if she just is because she startles so easily, if that's a part of it. It might all be a part of it. She has started crawling, and because she's now crawling all over the place, she's typically down to 1 or 2 times a night versus 2 or 3. So I think that's wearing her out. That's a blessing. Maybe when she starts walking, she'll be running around and sleep even better.
Yeah. And mentally, how were you during postpartum?
Thankfully, I have never struggled with postpartum depression. I feel so bad for women who experience that. I mentally do well after each pregnancy. I just fall in love with the baby and I enjoy. And I would say at 45, what has definitely changed is I'm even at 40, I thought we were done. At 45, I can't even imagine getting pregnant again. So I'm treasuring everything. I'm not in a rush. Even though she's not sleeping through the night, I'm not in a rush. I've enjoyed every stage and not wanted her to grow out of any one of them faster. I think I'm older, so I realize I look at my 14-year-old. I remember when she was a baby, and now she's 14. I think, wow, I realize now how fast everything goes, and I want to treasure this probably being our last. I want to treasure it more.
I love that. Is there anything else you want to add about your pregnancy or birth?
Well, I guess I would say that I do believe if I was blessed with another baby, I wouldn't go to a hospital. My experience at the hospital post-pandemic versus pre, it was quite different. I didn't feel as comfortable. I didn't feel like there was that connection with any of the people during the birth or afterwards like there was before. It was, I can't put a finger on it. It was just, even though they weren't requiring me to be masked or anything, and most of the nurses, when they would come in, were not wearing their mask, but it was different, and a different, that I just didn't feel as comfortable in the hospital as I've had before. And so if I would have another baby, I would definitely contact a midwife and try to do it that way. Even though I've always had an epidural, I would be willing to do it without, just to be in a more connected, intimate way.
Maybe being comfortable at home?
At home, or even in a birthing center, just not in a hospital anymore.
Yeah, interesting. And so do you have plans to have more kids in your 40s?
No, we didn't have a plan to have a baby at 45. That was completely a surprise to us, and I didn't even think it was possible, really, from what I'd heard, to get pregnant at 45 easily without trying. And so I told my kids were asking for another baby brother or sister, and I would tell them, no, I'm too old. So it's not going to work anymore. And they would laugh at me because they said, haha, you could get pregnant again. So, well, but they haven't asked for another one. And I would probably still say I'm too old. I don't know. If it happened, great. But do I expect it to happen? No.
Okay. And what has been your biggest challenge being pregnant in your 40s?
I think the worry about my age, honestly, adding 20 to every age that she's at. You know, when she's 20, how old will I be? When she's 30, I think that was the biggest hill to face for me. I think that even when I was pregnant with her, I kept thinking I was content with 6, you know. This wasn't something I even thought about. So that was why with number 6, I told you I had prayed about just one more baby. I just wanted one more pregnancy to round out my family at an even number, and I would be content. And I was. We'd given away baby stuff after that. We didn't think that I was pregnant again. And so finding out I was pregnant took a lot. The first month, I think, I just had to process it. To almost mourn what the future I had planned, because now things were changing. So I think that was the first time I'd had to do that. I had really convinced myself we were done. And so I had plans. I had vacation plans. I had plans with, lots of different things, and everything had to change. We had to cancel our planned vacation because I would be 38 weeks at the time. And I delivered, all my babies had come between 36 and 38 weeks. So we didn't feel it was wise to travel out of the state at 38 weeks.
Yeah.
And possibly going to labor. Now I went 39 weeks, but we didn't know that. I've never gone 39 weeks. That was the first time. So we didn't know that would happen. And so it was disappointing to cancel our vacation. I took it harder than the kids did. They were just so happy to have another baby coming. They didn't even care. But for me, it took a lot. It took that first month to really wrap my head around things, that I was going to have a baby in less than 4 months. I didn't even have the whole 9 months to prepare.
That's so true.
It was my shortest pregnancy ever. I don't even count the first 5 months because I didn't know. And I didn't act like I was pregnant. I didn't take prenatals. I wasn't seeing a doctor. So I really feel like I was only pregnant for 4 months. The time that I felt her kick until she was born was exactly 4 months.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That's incredible. I mean, to me, that is just a dream, because like you said, now you really feel like you're only pregnant for 4 months instead of the whole 9.
Right.
Yeah.
We would laugh and say, wow, she was with us on our beach vacation. She was with us at Thanksgiving. She was with us when we opened our presents on Christmas morning. Yeah, she was there and we didn't even know.
Wow.
It was totally surreal because I always knew I was pregnant. I would know before I took the test. I would just feel differently. And with this one, so sick, I missed all of that. And part of me was sad. Part of me was sad that I'd missed those, not very small part of me, because I was actually more thankful to have be too close to the end already. But
Mm-hmm.
part of me was sad I missed the beginning and excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me, but the bigger part of me was like, wow, she's already kicking. She's already fully developed, you know? I only have 4 months until we get to meet her. And that part was exciting.
Yeah. How did your family react whenever they found out that you were over halfway done?
My husband, he
Uh-huh.
actually said he had an idea, which drove me nuts. He said one night I was just frustrated about that little pooch I was carrying around, and I kind of shook it. And he said the way it shook, it didn't shake like fat. And I thought, she's pregnant. But I was afraid at that time, the same frame of mind you were in, you would not like me suggesting that was a possibility. So I kept my mouth shut. So he was the only one who said he kind of figured I was. Everybody else was just as much shocked as I was. And my kids were thrilled because they had been begging me to have another baby.
Mm-hmm.
And my 4-year-old especially, she wanted a sister and she wanted to name her Flower. And we said, well, you are getting a sister, but we're not naming her Flower.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. So they, they were over the moon excited.
That's really cool.
And they absolutely adore her to this day.
That's
She is spoiled,
wonderful.
not by her parents, but by her siblings.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
I think it's great to have a birth plan, but with flexibility, be prepared. As she was born, I forgot this, she was born with a little meconium.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a possibility of her being taken to the NICU. And thankfully she wasn't, because with my first baby born at 32 weeks and immediately upon delivery taken to the NICU, I didn't want to experience that again. So, and again, flexibility, being with an early baby, be prepared for a lot of other people in the room, or one of my babies needing oxygen when she was born. There's always things that are going to happen that are outside of your control, or not always, but sometimes there may be things that happen outside of your control. So again, I like to have ice chips to suck on. I like my husband to be there, and that's it. And I like limited intervention. And so but I know that sometimes more intervention than I would want needs to happen.
Sure.
Like when I went in at 10 centimeters dilated, and then as I have a whole team in the OR not knowing what to expect if this baby turns, and having my water broke to make sure she stays that way. It wasn't what my plan was, but I had to be okay with it and not stress about it.
Mm-hmm. And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
I wish I could go back to my first 4 pregnancies and eat healthier and exercise through those pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have felt a lot better. I was overweight during those pregnancies. I was miserable. I wasn't sleeping well. I was tired. And I don't think it was because I had babies, because they were all sleeping through the night. I think it was because I was not eating to feel good.
Yeah.
And I didn't know then what I know from my last 3 pregnancies, that the way you eat really influences how you feel during pregnancy.
Yeah. And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back at 44 and 40?
I don't think I would change anything. I think those were my best pregnancies.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because I think at 40 and 44, I was older, so I was maybe more seasoned because I'd had babies before that.
Uh-huh.
So I knew not to stress any part of the pregnancy because it all goes by so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And at 40, I thought she was our last baby. So I really treasured every moment of that pregnancy. And then was so miserable with the contractions the last trimester that it was just, then her birth, she was just the baby I'd wanted. And I was just so thankful that I didn't have any look back. I didn't have anything that I could think of to do differently. I'm thankful that they were able to turn her. And I marvel at her birth, just how everything went that day. That I said one thing when I meant another, and because of that, she was safely born. Because if I'd gone back home like I wanted to do, my water could have broken, and I could have had a prolapsed cord and been in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for the Lord's intervention in that, and I'm thankful. I look at Raina today at 9 months and crawling, and I'm just so thankful that I got to experience this pregnancy at 45 now. And I just don't try to worry about the future. Just be present in the here and now and be thankful.
Yeah. Okay. And where can our listeners find you on the internet?
I am on Instagram at Mary_L_Smiley and on Facebook, Mary Smiley.
Mary, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story.
Well, thank you very much.
And that's Mary's pregnancy stories at 40 and 44. I would love to only be pregnant for 4 months. And what's fun is Stephanie from episode 2 also didn't find out until 18 weeks. It is possible my dreams can come true. On next week's show, we have something a little different lined up. As many of you know, it's not always an easy journey. And I certainly don't want it to seem like it can't be hard. So that's why me and my friend Victoria from New Mommy Over 40 podcast and I are going to discuss loss. You know, Victoria does have a daughter, but she's also struggling to conceive more children. And I've only talked about my story a little bit here and there, so I'm actually quite nervous about it. If you need to sit this one out, hey, I totally understand. The week after that, we are going to pick right back up with Bethany's pregnancy story at 40. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday.